Hello everyone, welcome to an episode here on the J72 Gaming channel. My name is Jacob, but you can just call me Jay here, and today I want to help answer the question I'm sure a lot of you clicking on this video are wondering about. Should I get the Isle as a game? And what is the difference between the two versions called Legacy and Evrima? Well folks, you've come to the right spot. In this video, I'll be going over what the Isle is, how its Legacy version plays in its finished current version, and what to expect going forward with Evrima. We'll also take a look at Evrima's current state of the game, whether or not it's worth diving into, or if you should continue playing Legacy a little bit longer. So, as we get into this comparison and review of the Isle, please sit back, kick back, make sure you grab a snack, and let's get into it. What is the Isle? So what is this game called the Isle? The Isle is a dinosaur survival game, and in my opinion is the most realistic version of this genre of game that we have available. While I personally have actually never played Path of Titans or Beast of Bermuda, which are the other games in this genre, the Isle's graphics and attempt at making a gameplay experience of living a dinosaur's life from hatchling to full adult has captivated me much more than the other games, and the Isle has plenty of content to keep myself interested in it solely. Whether you're playing the Isle Legacy version or Evrima, which I will explain the difference in just a minute, your main goal is always to spawn as a young dinosaur and attempt to live your life to the fullest, with each dinosaur taking a different amount of time to grow to adulthood and to try to hunt, defend, and survive against other people playing the other dinosaurs. What starts as an interesting take to a survival game will soon become a unique experience all in its own right, with elements of an MMO, horror game, a parent simulator, or even a bush simulator. Well, more on that soon. The Isle became available to play in 2015 on December 1st and continually added new dinosaurs to play throughout the years. However, during late 2019, the developers made a critical and controversial decision which has altered the game tremendously. The dev team came to the conclusion that in order to build the game that they deemed worthy of calling the Isle, they needed to recode the game and essentially start from scratch. They stated that the changes were so grand and so major that the game needed to be basically remade from the ground up, and so started the Isle Evrima beta branch. So now, currently in 2021, we have access to the Isle Legacy version, which is the game created in 2015 up to the late 2019, full of different dinosaurs, a few maps, and multiple servers who have been around for years and still continue to host events to this day. We also have access to this new Evrima beta branch, which boasts a renewed combat system and graphics overhaul. There are still many people who prefer the older Legacy version over Evrima, however, so let's dive into the details of both and see which one you might want to spend your time playing. What the Legacy version has to offer. The first main difference you're going to notice with the Legacy version is a large amount of dinosaurs to choose from. Boasting from a large amount of both herbivores and carnivores, each dinosaur plays slightly different, from the lumbering and slow Parasaur and Triceratops to the quick and nimble Carnotaurus and Utahraptor. Each dinosaur will give you a different niche in the wild for you to play. Some of my personal favorites to play are the Dilophosaurus, who have the unique ability to see much better at night than any other dinosaur, or the Gallimimus, who has been nicknamed and joked the Immortal Dinosaur, since once it becomes fully grown, it's the fastest dinosaur in the game and will only die if the player gets a little bit too close to a predator. Speaking of the Dilophosaurus' ability to see better at night, the Legacy version of the Isle has an intense day and night system. While the system is a bit controversial for some players because of how dark it can actually get, I'm personally a big fan of it. Each dinosaur has a night vision, with some dinosaurs' night vision being much better than others. What this ends up doing is allowing some dinosaurs to hunt at night primarily when they know that the other players of the game have a more difficult time defending themselves. Evrima does have a day and night system in play currently, but it's nowhere near as dark as Legacy version has. Evrima will also have an update focused completely on the day and night cycle. However, they will also be bringing back the Dilo in that update as sort of a poster child for the system, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's focus back in on Legacy a bit more. For me personally, one of the most interesting and unique experiences the Isle brings to the table is the nesting mechanic. Once you have a female dinosaur old enough, which is usually a subadult or full adult for some species, you'll be able to make a nest. What makes it super unique is that the babies you hatch in are actually other players. I've never experienced being a parent, both in or out of a game, so the moments of joy helping raise another player to grow their dinosaur, as well as the intense adrenaline-fueled moments trying to defend them, and even the sad reality when one gets eaten, they're all quite super unique experiences that I have only ever really experienced and seen in this game. One of my favorite ways to play the Isle is trying to first get a specific dinosaur to adulthood, and then to try to get at least 2 other players hatched in and up to adulthoods themselves. It's a true challenge that can also allow you to make a friend or two along the way. And conversely, being hatched in as a baby can be another unique experience as you watch your parents trying to defend you from the devious predator players across the island. One thing I really do need to discuss, however, is the Legacy's combat system. and I'll be upfront with you all. I enjoy the combat in Evrima much more than Legacy, and fully agree with the developers on their decision to recode and rework the game from the ground up to make combat feel much better and much more realistic, but I'll try to be a bit unbiased here while explaining the differences. Legacy combat has been described by many as a tail-riding meta. The main difference between Legacy and Evrima's combat is the ability to phase through another player. Basically what this means is in Legacy, your dinosaur has no collision mechanic, so you could charge directly at another dinosaur and bite them while moving through their model. Due to this lack of collision, the best route of combat is usually to get behind another dinosaur and make sure you stay behind them as you bite. This has also bred some kind of meta combat moves, such as doing a break check to try to get your attacker to phase him to front of you, putting you in the advantageous spot. Another way to attack is what I'm going to be calling the phase hit and run. Utah and Dilo players are especially guilty of this type of combat, and it's where you charge out of the bushes at a player and bite them as you phase through them. Then you wait for another advantageous moment and charge again. If done well in a pack, the prey dinosaur usually has nothing they can do and will die a slow and honestly quite irritating death. Personally, I think the collision mechanic Evrima adds makes this type of combat much harder to pull off, but the system has been around for a few years in Legacy, and I know that there are players who do indeed prefer the combat of Legacy. I think it's a system where you're going to have to try out both for yourselves and come to a decision on which one you like the most. Another element of the Isle I need to talk about is what people have jokingly, yet quite accurately, named the Isle, and that is the Bush Simulator. Now this joke comes up frequently in the Isle community. Due to the dangerous nature of the game and how the goal really is to survive and grow your dinosaur to adulthood before you're able to hold your own weight in combat, many players will find moments in their growth system where they have full food and full water, and they just need to stay safe. Thus, many people choose to simply sit in a bush until they are hungry or thirsty again. This gameplay makes the most sense, and it does indeed increase your chance of survival while you hide. But dudes, man is it boring. The developers are aware of this lackluster reality of gameplay many players choose, and it was another reason to recode the game and add the additions to Evrima that the game needed to see. Evrima has an update planned called the Diet System, which aims to get dinosaur players to consistently migrate in order to eat the correct type of plants or hunt the correct type of prey. This should hopefully get players to sit in a bush a lot less, and finally axe this bush simulator joke for good. Just know that if you do choose to play the Isle currently, neither Legacy or Evrima have a diet system in play quite yet, so unfortunately the bush system is here to stay just a bit longer. A final aspect of the Legacy version I need to touch upon is the element of the available servers. Since the Isle has no true rule set, the servers are ruleless and allow players to hunt and kill whoever they wish whenever they wish to. While this is actually my personal favorite way to play the game, the combat system of Legacy brought some desired structure for some players, and thus rule set servers were created. These servers' rules differ a bit between them, but generally have the rule where if you're in a pack versus another pack and you're fighting and somebody dies, the fighting will stop and the successful pack needs to stay near the corpse until it is eaten. Other predators can challenge them to the corpse if they wish, and the owners can accept the fight or back off and give it to the other predators. These rules are, sadly, not always followed and are sometimes confusing to new players. This has bred kind of the toxic community over all the many players either hating or loving the rule set. Combine that with many reports of many moderators on specific servers abusing or not following their own rules, and well, you get some less than desirable moments. One of the worst moments I had in this game was on one of those rule set servers, which I will not name here. I was showing my friend the game for the first time, and we managed to get 2 Carnos to full adults. It was about that time that we decided we're going to try nesting, and we wanted to show that unique side of the game. Well, we spent some time finding a good nesting site, ran around, filled the nest full of food for the incoming hatchling, and then started sending out the nest invites to folks. See, the person we ended up getting was a mod, who immediately grew themselves to full adult, started roaring loudly, which attracted another apex predator to our location. The mod charged at the apex, died pretty much instantly, and then that apex predator turned his sight on us. And my friend being new to the game, he didn't stand much of a chance in the fight. So due to this mod being obnoxious, and the predator player not stopping combat due to a body down, my friend's first experience with the game was quite sour and he didn't enjoy it. It took some convincing to get him to try again, and it wasn't actually until Evrima where he did try it again, ended up enjoying the game a little bit more. So, with that little story explained, let's see just exactly what Evrima hopes to bring to the table, and if it can redeem some of the downsides of the Legacy. What Evrima hopes to bring to the table. So what can we expect from Evrima? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the main focus of the developers with Evrima was to recode and rework the combat system from the ground up. Essentially what this means for players directly is the collision mechanic. No longer can dinosaurs simply phase through each other. If a Utah decides to charge directly at a Stegosaurus player, well, he's going to slam into that player as if it was a brick wall, allowing that Stego to make full use of the tail it's got. They have also upgraded the smell mechanic tremendously. In both versions of the Isle, you can hold the Q key, and your dinosaur will sniff around and you will then be able to see where water is, downed corpses, and tracks of other animals. While this is present in the Legacy, it's upgraded dramatically in Evrima, specifically the tracking of footprints. You can finally feel like a true hunter when playing carnivores, and if you see the tracks of another dinosaur, you can actually follow them and catch up to your prey. This does wonders for the game, as it makes herbivore players continuously move around or stake their territory and defend it, but it helps remove the desire to sit in a bush, as a carnivore may just track you straight to that bush. Unique abilities have also been added to the game for most dinosaurs. The Utah can now pounce and latch onto the side of dinosaurs, tearing and shredding flesh in the hopes to bleed their prey. The Carnotaurus has a head charge, which can plow through and knock down unsuspecting smaller dinosaurs. The new Hypsilophodon has a spinning mechanic where it can try to blind the targeted dinosaurs. These new mechanics really added a lot of new gameplay to the Isle, and personally I've been having a lot of fun in one of my video series where I try to blind every full-grown dinosaur as the Hypsi. It's been pretty hilarious and pretty intense trying to avoid death while blinding all the carnivorous dinosaurs. So shameless self-plug, go check that out if you want to see some of these new unique abilities in action in Evrima. Evrima has done a lot to help out our carnivores with eating as well. They added two mechanics, one that allows you to rip chunks of flesh off a corpse and run away with it to eat in a safer spot. This is huge for our younger dinosaur players as well as our smaller adult predators like the Utah and the soon-to-come Troodon. And for our larger predators, they added a mechanic where you can grab the corpse and pull it to a safer location. I've personally used this to great effect when my pack of Cardinals were fighting a pack of Utahs. Those sneaky Utah players really wanted to stay in the trees, so pulling one of the dead ones that we managed to kill out into the open field was really beneficial for us to be able to eat our prize safely. Evrima has also added little features here and there and will continue to add them as the updates roll out. What makes Evrima updates very promising in my opinion is how they are implementing new mechanics. Basically, they are making sure that if they add a mechanic to one dinosaur, they will have that across the board for every dinosaur moving forward. The first type of this mechanic that they have given us is the wallow ability. Dinosaurs are now able to find mud somewhere on the island and they can take a nice mud bath. Not only does this look pretty cool, or extremely cute in the Dryos case, the mud will allow you to be untraceable for a bit of time. This breeds yet another new gameplay mechanic into the game. Very often I have been hunting and following the tracks of another player who then decided to cross a river. While I was able to see where they stepped out of the river, it was pretty obvious that they then wallowed in the mud and ran off into the forest without any tracks to follow, thus saving their lives and making me a very hungry and upset carnivore. One of these features that has me the most excited is the diet system coming out in Update 5 that I mentioned earlier. With this system, dinosaurs will need to eat a specific type of food, and in doing so will actually grow up faster. In reality, what this will do is help move players in specific areas of the map. Herbivore players will need to migrate to the areas of the map that have their specific food, and thus carnivore players who need to feed off that specific herbivore will then follow. Having a goal to eat your specific type of food is huge in my opinion. It gives the player a goal at all times. Even when they are no longer hungry or thirsty, they know that they still want to be heading towards the next meal so that they can grow to adulthood as fast as possible. No longer will the bush simulator rule the island, and I am so on board for that. Many more features are on the way with Evrima, which has me extremely hyped. The perk system will come out in Update 4, which will finally give us a reason to play the same species over and over again to add new perks and skills to our dinosaur. While the specifics of this system are not yet announced much, we do know that it'll be something along the lines of making a Carno run faster, or perhaps having thicker skin to lower bleed damage from Utahs. Perhaps a Stego can choose to eat less often, or have its tail spikes do even more damage. These perks have me really excited, and it is all leading up to the eventual grand prize Evrima is going to offer, Elders. Now the Elder system is still in the to-be-determined time frame, but the ultimate goal of playing the Isle in Evrima has finally been addressed. Once you've been playing a dinosaur long enough and it's gained enough perks, likely aided by a well-diet system, you will then have two options for your dinosaur. You can either choose to die peacefully at an old age, or transfer your perks onto the next generation of that specific species of dinosaur that you will choose to play. Or you can evolve into something much greater. The Elders have been said to be the true apex version of their species, and they will do much more damage and have much more health. They will truly be the rulers of the Isle when you get to play one. However, your time as an Elder is limited, and eventually your Elder will get very, very old, and in fact will end up being even weaker than the normal adult version of your dinosaur. This system is so cool, guys. Essentially, once all the updates have rolled out, the gameplay for Evrima will allow you to main a dinosaur species. If you really love playing Dilophosaurus, you can commit a few lives to this species and end up being the best Dilo player on your server. I think this is a super smart addition to the game and is easily the main reason, besides combat, that I am stoked on the future for Evrima. But let's back it up just a bit. As the perk, diet, and elder systems are still to come, let's look at what is just over the horizon for us players. Or here now, depending on when you're watching this video. Update 3 has many of us Isle players extremely hyped, and some are wondering if Update 3 is the true turning point of Evrima, making it finally 100% better than the Legacy. So let's take a look at why people are thinking such. 2 words. Flying, swimming. Update 3 will add the first true aquatic dinosaurs to the Isle, and the first airborne dinosaur too, Deinosuchus and Pteranodon. Deinosuchus is essentially a humongous crocodile, and I think I can trust that you know what a pterodon is. Flying high above the map is a thrill many players cannot wait for, but some players are equally excited to be the stealthy croc and to ambush players who just want to get a drink of water at the local watering hole. This update will bring in 2 new types of fish for all dinosaurs to enjoy. Small schooling fish will allow even Utah and Carno players to try their luck at fishing up a quick meal, while the elite fish will be rarer and harder to catch large fish, meant for fully grown Deinosuchus and future other aquatic dinosaurs to feast on. So there's the overview for Legacy and Evrima. Let's take a quick look at some of the pros and cons of each, and then I'll give my final opinion on which game I think you should be playing. Legacy pros and cons. Legacy has a lot going for it. Its larger option of dinosaurs is a huge pro, as it has nearly 4 to 5 times as many options for you to play. It currently has the nesting system implemented, which Evrima is still a few months away from completing, and thus can be much easier to get a group of players together to play. The night and day system also makes its case for Legacy, as in Evrima it's not fully implemented as a true game mechanic. I also have not yet talked about the maps for each version, but hands down the V3 map of Legacy is my favorite map the Isle has to offer. Evrima's Spyro map may eventually become my favorite, but as of now it only has about 1/5 of the map available for us to explore. V3's map has rolling valleys, long rivers, multiple human locations, a giant aviary, and much more. If anything, I think it's very worth playing the Legacy version to explore this map and see what it has to offer. Some cons, however, for Legacy are pretty glaring for me. The combat system of tail riding is a love or hate it system, and personally I cannot get behind the phasing through other dinosaurs. Collision adds a lot to the immersion, and that is important to me. So combat gets a big con for me in Legacy. Another aspect I didn't touch on too much is the overall speed of movement in Legacy vs Evrima. Generally, all dinosaurs move slower in Legacy, and some feel like an absolute tank. It can be a bit boring walking around for some of the dinosaurs, and even large apex like the T-Rex can feel like a slog playing, so I count that as another con. And lastly, I'm going to give the rule set servers a note here. While my experiences with the mods and rules on these servers have ended up being a con for me, I do understand that my experience is not the same as all other people and other players, and some people absolutely love the rules. What I do not enjoy, however, is how some of the servers will offer you to quote-unquote buy some of the dinosaurs. Now see, in Legacy, not every dinosaur was completely finished. Take the Stegosaurus, for example. It was never finished and thus does not have a sniff animation, and so it can literally not search for food in the Legacy version. These unfinished dinosaurs are not offered to you to spawn in normally, but some private servers have offered them through different means, be it through participation of events or through donations to the server's admins and mods. This means that if you want to play your favorite dinosaur, and it is, say, a Spinosaurus, there's no easy way for you to do so. This also means that you will often see other players playing the better and cooler dinosaurs that you cannot, and those dinosaurs may or may not be much stronger than you in combat. Overall, this feels pretty bad, and Evrima is making sure to only release dinosaurs that are completed across the board. Hopefully, this will take away from the monetization of some servers and also aid to a more balanced play experience for all players. Evrima pros and cons. So now for Evrima's pros and cons. I've touched upon them slightly already discussing Legacy, but let's lay it out on the table again for clarity. Evrima's biggest pro is the combat system. The lack of phasing through enemies is huge, and the addition of new abilities for each of the dinosaur aids to both gameplay and balance. The improvements to the sniffing system and the ability to track other players' footsteps had made for a much better experience in minute-to-minute gameplay, and thus aids to the overall happiness of the players behind the screen. The small additions to eating, like moving the corpse and ripping off a chunk of flesh, has made playing a carnivore that much more versatile, and additions like the wallow mechanic have helped herbivores make a smart decision to stay alive. The graphics for Evrima should also be mentioned quickly. While Legacy looks pretty good, Evrima looks great and is a move in the right direction. Some cons for Evrima, however, are the current lack of content. Less dinosaurs mean you are going to be seeing and running into the same few species pretty often, and the desync issues that are currently affecting the servers are quite rough. However, I didn't mention them too much beforehand because they are currently the main focus of the devs as the week of writing this, so I trust that those will be solved quickly and ready for Update 3 when it comes out soon. Evrima's spiral map has a few hidden gems around it, however overall the map is a lot less interesting compared to the V3 option Legacy has. I have tried to show off some cool locations in a few of my videos however for Evrima, so if that's something you'd like to explore, check out the time card above. Final thoughts on Legacy vs Evrima. Plenty of the other systems that make Legacy great, like the day or night cycle or the nesting mechanic, are all planned for Evrima. So while not in the game currently for Update 3, once those are in the game, I think it'll make it pretty hard to argue for Legacy being the better game, in my opinion. The perk system, diet system, venom poison system, and climbing mechanic that are all planned for future updates as well will have me super excited for what's to come in Evrima. So what do you all think? I've laid out the pros and the cons and features of both Legacy and Evrima. Will Update 3 be enough for you to dive into Evrima, or are you still a fan of all the dinosaur choices that we have in Legacy? Personally, I have only been playing Evrima since Update 2 brought the Carnotaurus and the Stego into the game, and with the addition of Deinosuchus and Pteranodon in Update 3, I think that it will solidify my choice to stay with Evrima, but I'll leave that up to you to make that choice for yourself. Thanks everyone for taking the time to watch this video. If you made it to the end of this comparison video and you want to see more Isle content from me, please consider subscribing as it really does help push my channel towards the reality of making this a full-time job for me so that I continue making these informative and fun videos for all of us to enjoy. What is an easy like and subscribe from you can end up being a huge benefit to me in my life, so thank you genuinely for that. Update 3 is going to be so sick, and I can't wait to see all of you in the skies as a Pteranodon, or pass you in the depths of the water as a Deinosuchus. Just hope I'm not on my Hipsy challenge, as I might just try to blind you. Alright everybody, that's it from me, so no matter where you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good night. But until next time, see ya!